What's up, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Wrestling with Johners. This is episode 159, and this is a special AEW Full Gear pay-per-view review, and this is part of the Wrestling with Johners 2-year anniversary celebration week-long of podcasts. So I've got three excellent guests joining me today to review quite a good show, a very, very good show from AEW last night. I've got Chocky T, or Chris Thornton from The Brood, the Turnbuckle Arms. How you doing, Chris?
Yeah, really well, John. You?
Very, very well. Very, very well indeed. Griz, another member of The Brood from the Turnbuckle Arms. How you doing, Griz?
Undefeated.
Yes, still top of the Wrestling with Johners Brainbuster super charts. Yes, it's been a while since we've actually had anybody on there. But I know Mags took a turn on that. I can't remember your score, Mags, but Griz is still top of the leaderboard if we ever revisit that. And Mags, Mags, 3 pods. How you doing? It's been a long time. I don't think we've spoken since Takeover Portland. So that was back in February. How are you doing, Mags?
It's a wang slapper, by the way. I'll just let you know.
Yes, that's correct. We all got given nicknames by Griz before we pressed record, but I won't be going there. Griz, it's up to you. You tend to take over anyway, to be fair. But we will see how this goes. But we're here to have fun. It was talking a little bit off air. It was a very, very good show. Lots of high points, lots of quality wrestling, lots of good storyline development, lots of kind of positive points from my end. Anyway, not too many niggles, but we'll talk about that as we go. Yeah, brilliant to have you all back on. And Chris is my kind of resident AEW expert. The last time we spoke was All Out a couple of months ago. So thank you all for coming back on board. And quite a special week for me as well, the 2-year anniversary of the Wrestling with Johners podcast.
Yeah, congratulations on that.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Glad to be back for your 2-year anniversary. Like, absolutely.
That's right. On that. Yeah, and last time we spoke to you, Griz, was I think we spoke about WrestleMania, didn't we? I think did we cover WrestleMania Day 2 with Matt Bayless? Yes. That was interesting. Talking about the Firefly Funhouse match. That's a match that you won't easily forget.
Wouldn't have it any other way.
But here we go. Let's kick things off. And I don't know if you guys caught the buy-in, but they did have a buy-in match on the pre-show, and it was for the NWA Women's Championship. Serena Deeb versus Allysin Kay. Now, this was quite a good match. Serena Deeb retained over Allysin Kay. One thing I found quite interesting was that, by all accounts, Allysin Kay got let out of her NWA contract only a few days ago, announcing that she was a free agent, and then all of a sudden she's kind of hit up by Tony Khan to be in the match on the pre-show, the buy-in for the NWA Women's Championship. So it kind of came full circle very quickly for her, but I suppose you can't pass up an opportunity. But after this match, we saw the returning Thunder Rosa, former NWA Women's Champion, of course, who Serena Deeb beat a few weeks back. And it looks like we're going to be seeing a lot more of Thunder Rosa. She had a bit of a stare down, a bit of a face-off to Serena. But any thoughts on what went down here? Because, quite interesting and great to see Thunder Rosa back. Like I say, the more the merrier from Thunder Rosa as far as I'm concerned. And hopefully we can see her in the title picture, not just with the NWA Women's Championship, but maybe with the main title itself. But hand it over to yourself first, Chris. Did you catch this match? And what did you think of the developments that went down?
I did, thank you. Yeah, which made the show a whopping length by the end of it. But yeah, it was a quite a good kind of kick-off or buy-in, as they call it, I should say. Really nice bit of business by Tony Khan. Just to give a bit of context, it was Orange Cassidy and John Silver of the Dark Order that was originally supposed to be the buy-in show. And due to a little bit of fan popularity, not the first time they've done that, and yeah, because of the developing NWA women's scene, TK has done some good work there, and it shifted it around to the last minute. But it was a welcome match to see. It was a good match, to be fair. I'm a big fan of Serena, always have been. Great to see Thunder Rosa in there as well. My only critique, and I think this is something other people have picked up online, is that AEW appears to be focusing more on the NWA Women's Championship side than their own championship picture. So that's something we'll get to later on. But as far as matches go, it was really good. The packages they also built up, shout out to them, they were fantastic leading up to that, some of the best. But yeah, in terms of the actual match, really good quality stuff. Great champion there, and yeah, more exciting I think is Thunder Rosa coming back. So yeah, for me, great way to get people involved, and considering it was all very last minute, pretty good match, I'd say.
Yeah, all in all, a good start to the buy-in anyway, or a good start to kind of the overall package from last night. But I do want to touch on kind of the NWA Women's title versus the AEW Women's Division a little bit later on when we talk about that match. So kind of make a note on that one, Chris, and we'll talk more about that later on, because that is quite an interesting discussion, certainly with regards to how one title is being presented over the other, you could say. But let's go straight into the main card then, guys, and it opened with a really hot match, an incredible match, and it's a match that we've been looking forward to for a while. The final of the world title eliminator. It brewed down to Kenny Omega, the Cleaner, versus the Cowboy Adam Page. So, yeah, we've obviously seen over the last month or so the reintroduction of the Cleaner gimmick from Kenny Omega. You had the women out there with the brooms brushing away, and you had the fantastic pomp and circumstance. We even saw the Impact executive Don Callis on commentary, so a little bit of an Impact crossover here. He said on commentary that he was invited by Chris Jericho, but this feud has been brewing for a long time now. Now, I'd certainly like your opinion on this, because before we get to the match, Adam Page and Kenny Omega, like I say, that they've gone through this relationship for better part of a year as a tag team. We've had the whole drinking angle. We had that 5-star match at Revolution at the beginning of the year with the Young Bucks. And then Adam Page gets kicked out of the Elite. Then they lose the titles to FTR. Then they find each other in this final. It's been a great storyline. You could say that nobody does long-term storyline booking better than AEW. But starting with you, Mags, before we talk about the match, give us your thoughts on this kind of relationship and how it's broken down to the point where they fought each other last night.
Yeah, it's I really do enjoy the storyline. I think it's one of the better storylines that AEW have got going. I don't particularly like the leaning on the alcoholism. I think that's something that kind of doesn't really hit home with me. But I do like. Yeah, I do like the fact that we're seeing like this downward spiral of Hangman really kind of having nobody to turn to, and then we're seeing this very slow kind of heel turn of Kenny Omega. It's a real like dichotomy of storylines. I think it's very well produced, and I've really been enjoying it.
And Griz, yourself, your thoughts on this storyline, and has it kind of done the business for you?
Well, the storyline I actually quite enjoy. I mean, I think that, with all due respect to your boy Darren over there, like, I think that this whole like drinking storyline with Hangman is actually he's gotten incredibly over, because I mean he's kind of working to the everyman, myself included. Just like you know what. Everybody, well, not everybody, but like a lot of people love a good brewski every now and again. But see, when it's time to get down and dirty, it's time to get down and dirty, and that's when your boy Hangman gets serious.
Indeed. Well, let's have a look at some of the highlights of this match then. So it went to the outside early on. They fought around ringside. There's plenty of knife edge chops. We even see Kenny Omega hit a moonsault off of the guard railing. That could have ended horribly, but it looked pretty impressive, and he executed it very well. There was also New Japan references on commentary, certainly with the relationship that Don Callis and JR had when they were commentating for New Japan, of course, and of course with Kenny Omega's legendary run in New Japan. Go ahead.
Minoru Suzuki got a shout out, which I was like, Minoru, my fucking favorite.
Yeah,
that was brilliant.
Indeed. We even got an early V trigger from Omega on the rampway. This was followed up by 2 pop-up power bombs by Page, leading to a close near fall. The match turned into a bit of a back and forth slugfest towards the end, with several close near falls from both men. But it was Kenny Omega who came out on top after executing a one-winged angel, and he struggled to hook it on. Adam Page really didn't want to be hit with that, but he did, and it came down to Kenny Omega. 1, 2, 3. He's the new #1 contender for the world title for whoever might be holding the bout by the end of this show. So starting with you, Chris, then give us your thoughts on this one. It was a really hot way to open the show. A lot of people probably would have predicted this would have been later on in the card, but as a show opener, it did the trick.
Yeah, absolutely. Considering the kind of emotional build and the storyline, you would have expected it in the middle of the card as a kind of Shawn Michaels has done this a lot. He's filled in that kind of massive match where it's not for the belt, but it is a real like tearjerker by the end of it. I guess what you had in place was Young Bucks FTR, which also had a similar kind of storyline. But yeah, as openers go, fantastic. As you might know, Kenny Omega's my absolute favorite. Maybe even of all time now, because he just continues to deliver. Everything he does is so crisp and so effortless, and they reference that in the commentary. The way he pops his hips when he leaps over the ropes. His dragon suplexes. Everything's so sharp with him. But who really impressed me was Hangman. He really stood and he hung, no pun intended, with Kenny. For the whole match, and despite being what is he, 29 compared to like Omega's 38. He really looks the business, doesn't he, Hangman?
I don't think he's that old.
Oh, really? Is he not? I thought he was like.
You know what? I'll check while you continue talking.
Thank you. And yeah, so great match. I think considering the emotional build I had, I would have liked to have seen a bit more from Hangman and to touch on the alcoholism, perhaps maybe lose control of his emotions a bit. Perhaps kind of get into a rage towards the finish if he couldn't finish him off. I felt like there's still a little more to be told from this. And we'll get back to it later. But Omega's heel turn for me isn't quite fully formed. And it's something I want more than anything. But I'll touch on that when he appears again. But yes, a really great match. Fantastic opening match. And then essentially that's what you need, isn't it, to hook people in. So despite its placement, it was actually a really sharp match. And it flew by. And I don't think they stopped. I don't remember a moment in that match where they really took a breath. And that reminds me a lot of Omega's classic matches where, being the machine he is, he just delivers, minute after minute. So yeah, really good match. Of course, it was the right winner. It had to be, and at least they kind of acknowledged this on commentary that everyone knew that these two would meet. But yeah, absolutely great way to open the show properly.
And Mags, what are your feelings on this match? Did it deliver for you?
Yeah, absolutely, and I'm gonna probably echo Chris a lot with what he said. I think I've always had the kind of view that if you're not going on last, you want to go on first and kind of be the bar setters. And this match was the perfect way to set the tone for the show. For me, this felt like Kenny's most New Japan style match since he's been in AEW. The way he used like the Tiger Driver 98 and the Dragon Screw leg whip. The way they protected the buckshot lariat with Omega not getting hit with it, so he didn't have to kick out of it. I thought it was a well-worked match. Again, perfect winner. I don't think this storyline is over because obviously things that happen later on in the show. I think we're still going to get this kind of downward spiral of Paige, but yeah, it was a brilliant way to start the show and really got you hyped for what were to come.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and Griz, yourself, anything in particular jump out from this match that really got you hooked?
I mean, it was a fun match, but I don't know. I kind of feel like maybe it was just like kind of when it ended. I was like, okay, that was it. Mm. Like, I mean, there was a lot of build to it, and I know the kind of fight for the one winning Angel was like kind of interesting, but
yeah,
I don't know. I feel like maybe just another like couple of minutes, maybe have taken it over the top, but that's me personally. Like, I mean, I love both of them, and arguably going into this match, I really wanted Hangman to win, but I know that's not the story going into this, so on me. Yeah. So, but obviously, like, I love the new Kenny Omega gimmick of the coming out with the dancers with the brooms and stuff, and it's like, okay, I am totally all in on this new Kenny Omega.
Yeah, 100%. Any thoughts on Don Callis being there, and is it kind of signs of a possible working relationship with Impact? And lots of New Japan references. We know they've already got a working relationship with Billy Corgan and the NWA, but are AEW trying to, reach out to other organisations and have kind of more branches to their bow, you could say, strings to their bow? Any thoughts on this one, Chris?
I wouldn't say necessarily that was their aim, because I think they've always been a lot more transparent than the competition. It's around the show. why a common theme was referencing other talent. A couple of matches certainly had some kind of well recognizable finishers, let's say, and names were mentioned then. But yeah, TNA, NWA, they've already been mentioned before. I think this is just AEW just being themselves. However, of course, I would love to see any kind of working relationship between TNA and further the NWA one. Don Callis, it was great to have him there. But yeah, I think for now that's just them being themselves, and as a fan, a serious fan, I really appreciate their transparency with that. And there's no point getting around it. We know what other competition exists, and so don't play dumb, So yeah, good for them, I think, and it's great to see Don Callis there, I must say.
Yeah, 100%. Let's move on to the next match then. So we got number 4, John Silver versus Orange Cassidy. So as Chris mentioned, this was originally booked for the buy-in, and because of John Silver's rising popularity as one of the standout characters of the Dark Order, not only did he get a match with Orange Cassidy, but it got moved from the buy-in onto the main card, which is kind of credit to him and credit to Orange Cassidy as well. What's your thoughts very quickly on the rise of John Silver? Because is he kind of, he is obviously the standout character of the Dark Order, but is he kind of going to overshadow any members of the Dark Order? But Griz, starting with yourself, John Silver, are you a fan, and is he getting over the right way for you?
Of course I'm a fan. How can you not be a fan of the tiniest dude in the Dark Order being buff AF? I mean, Jesus Christ, the arms on that guy. But also, I don't know if you watch Being the Elite, which I kind of do from time to time, and that dude is hella entertaining. I don't think I watched this week's, but last week they had that whole Halloween party thing, and Jesus, the dude is absolute money. And if he stays in Dark Order, that's fine, but if he branches on his own, my God, the future that this guy has is unbelievable.
Yeah, he's must-see TV right now. He really, really is. But let's get to the match anyway, because we saw Silver tear out the pockets of Orange Cassidy's trousers and give him a little chew as well, just for good measure, before launching Cassidy across the ring with 2 huge bills. We saw a very impressive one-handed gorilla press as well from John Silver, and then a Michinoku driver from Orange Cassidy for a close near fall. The exchanges between these two was off the charts, to be honest with you. Some awesome moments between these two. We even got a close near fall from Silver after a spin doctor, but it was Orange Cassidy who pulled out the orange punch and then the beach break combo for the pinfall. And guys, this match was so much fun, and the loss in this match by John Silver won't hurt him one iota. I think Orange Cassidy really needed this pay-per-view win. But really fun match. Going to start with you, Mags. Give us your thought on this one. Like I say, 2-2, so 2 good matches to kick off the main show.
Johnny Hungee. It was a glorious match, especially after that the kind of high pace of the first one set up. You needed like a bit of a come down, and this was perfect for it. John Silver has been one of the stars of the COVID era. His performances on Being the Elite are absolutely phenomenal, and he really brought it in this match. I love the how angry we were getting when Orange Cassidy was putting his hands in his pockets. Yeah, it was just a fun match, and I think this pay-per-view needed a fun match because of all the kind of intense stories that were to follow it. Yeah, but I loved it. I thought it was a great match, and both of them come out of this looking way better than they did when they were going in.
100%. And Griz, your thoughts on this one?
Good fun. As it says, John Silver is he is the man, and Orange Cassidy, absolutely one of my favorite wrestlers going just now. So seeing the two of them go at it is it's kind of WrestleMania for me, to be honest.
Bit of your a dream match for you, and Chris,
exactly.
Did this match do
it
for you
match
as
I didn't
well?
know I needed.
Exactly.
You didn't know you needed. I think Griz has put that well. Yeah. yeah, for me, that might be a little controversial. I think it was almost the third best match of the night. It was just because not only was it fun, but they did the business too. Like that beat was vicious every time I bust it out. And John Silver, the power, it's insane. Those kicks, like he really is something special. And I didn't know this, but he was on Tough Enough as well back in the day.
I saw his video this week and I'd never seen it. And he was hilarious, absolutely hilarious.
That's been making the rounds, yeah.
Exactly. So we've all seen that this week, and again, like that shows the popularity, that YouTube started to pick up on the John Silver algorithm that we're all looking into. It's personality, and he was, look at him. He unfortunately, you're never really going to take him that seriously. So I think he knows how to embrace exactly who he is and how to get over. And you could argue, Orange Cassidy's done almost exactly the same thing. He's tapped into a character that doesn't have to be incredibly powerful or smart or anything like that. He almost seems an extension of himself, as we always know. As history tells us, they are the best characters. So for me, fantastic match, like really good fun. And I was just laughing through it. The pockets. I love him. Yeah, he is always hungry. And for me, what a great spot. And it did reference several moments from being elite over the last couple of months. So really good. Great fun.
Yeah, I just love the way that he's kind of got himself over with his personality. Like you say, as Griz put it, he's as buff AF. Like I say, I really enjoyed this match. Really, really did. I thought the two of them put in some great sequences. I'm a little bit concerned that kind of the bubble might have burst slightly with Orange Cassidy, and I think he might have a few more wins under his belt to maybe get back up there. But let's move on to the next match anyway. Cody Rhodes. Yes, Cody Rhodes versus Darby Allin for the TNT Championship. First off, I just want to say I loved Darby Allin's entrance on top of that spray-painted car, and then smashing the skateboard through the windscreen. I was slightly worried for the driver, but that was a great way. And then, of course, we've got the Triple H-esque entrance from Cody, as always, accompanied to the ring by Brandy and the Nightmare family. And great to see that Cody can finally have the use of the Rhodes name, considering that Brandy can use Brandy Rhodes and Dustin can use Dustin Rhodes, but he was not able to. But I think there's been some sort of deal struck behind the scenes there. But I also loved it when JR said on commentary that, well, how about that? We've not heard that name since one of my screw-ups. So at least JR was open that he's fallible after all. We had the great Mike Chioda as the official. And it doesn't take too long before we see Cody get a bit frustrated with Darby Allin's offense. Cody even throws Darby over onto the rampway in like a hammerlock position. That looked like it sucked, but probably not the worst bump that Darby Allin's ever taken, let's be honest. Cody missed a moonsault, which gave Darby Allin a chance to make a comeback. An exposed turnbuckle came into play, leading to a 2 count for Darby Allin. We even saw some biting and some showboating from a somewhat frustrated Cody here. We got a really close near fall from an avalanche crossroads. That looked incredible when he hit that. There was another close near fall from Darby Allin from a coffin drop, and it's rare to see anybody actually kick out of the coffin drop, but Cody did on this occasion. Then, guys, we had a series of roll-up and cradles from the two of them, and Darby came out on top with the final cradle, getting the pinfall, and we have a new TNT champion. So for a moment at the end of this match, I thought Cody was going to turn heel on Darby, but instead he got down on one knee, handed Darby Allin the championship, and they showed a lot of sportsmanship in handing over the belt there to his opponent and the new champion. So Mags, starting with you again. This was another really, really good match. We're 3 for 3 at the moment for the main show, but give us your thoughts on this one.
Yeah, I think it was one of Cody's better matches in AEW. I think him and Darby Allin have such great in-ring chemistry, and they just seem to know each other so well in terms of wrestling. I love the way he focused on the arm and kind of like took that kind of old school approach of wearing down a body part. I enjoyed the kind of subtle heel turn of Arn Anderson, where he went out and gave Cody the advice of come on, bully him around the ring. You're stronger than him.
That's a good shout, actually.
Yeah, and then when we got to the end and Cody handed him the title, you could see the frustration on Arn's face. Like he was not happy that Cody kind of just relinquished the title. But yeah, it was I really, really enjoyed the match. Like I said, one of Cody's better matches, and it was a great way to put Darby Allin's name front and center and become the new face of TNT.
100% agreed. And Griz, going to yourself, this was a great match, wasn't it?
Oh man, let's we can talk about Cody's reign and how because I'm not gonna lie, when Brody Lee beat Cody for the belt, I was chuffed, and when Cody just won it right back, I was like, no, not my kind of thing. But you know what? I feel like that was almost the perfect platform for someone like Darby to beat Cody, especially because of the story going into it. Which is interesting because Cody keeps saying I've beat Cody. I beat Darby multiple times. But you haven't. You beat Darby once, and then the second time, or the first time, was a time limit draw. So you've only beat Darby once, and that was why an absolute fluke on Darby's half, because if you remember, he hit the coffin drop and then kind of leant back so far that he kind of put himself into a pinfall. Mm-hmm. So, technically, Cody has never technically beat Darby Allin. So, this was really good. That I will kind of dispute the fact that Cody kicked out of the coffin drop though. I feel like that should have been the finish. That would have been a great way to end it. But they kind of roll up back and forth thing was pretty awesome.
Yeah, and Chris, you were happy with the new champion?
Yeah, I was. I think it was slightly telegraphed, only because as Cody kept saying, even if it's not technically true, he had beaten him, I suppose, more than once. So I think you kind of had the idea he couldn't lose again. I am very happy with that. It was a great match of styles, and yeah, Cody, he knows, just like Triple H used to, just when to heal it up just a little. Not a complete character change, but under promos, he was kind of had that heelish mannerism. So they'd set that up really well. It was a good match. The Avalanche Crossroads, the way Darby kind of took the impact and rolled over to the ropes, that was really good. That protected that slightly. So I had no real problem with him kicking out the coffin drop, either with that. So yeah, it was a really strong match. Worked over the hammerlock and the arm for a long, long time. Perhaps to Max's point, Arn's there getting very frustrated with that. Perhaps he wanted to stick to the game plan rather than trying something new. So there was a lot of storylines within that, which I quite enjoyed. At the end, yeah, Cody remains the face, and I do think he will. He said it in a promo a couple of weeks back. He was going to stick to this path, stick with the fans. They got in there. I don't see him actually turning. And of course, it led to the intervention of Team Taz, which we might talk about in a minute. Yeah. So I think you had to kind of keep facing up, basically, up until that moment. But Darby looked great, and I believe he's the first of what I'm going to call the kind of. Cody said it himself, the year one rookies. He's the first of those, I think, to actually win a title. So if you count MJF, Jungle Boy, Britt, Sammy Guevara, yeah. So that's quite a special win for Darby in a way, considering his relative lack of experience. But
absolutely,
yeah. So. Really strong match, and both will look fantastic. I can't get enough of watching Darby move around the ring, and Cody's frustration with that. It just added to it. So maybe one of Cody's best matches, and certainly probably Darby's best match.
Yeah, and you alluded to it there, Chris, that Taz came out. He said enough of the crying and the waterworks. Then Ricky Starks and Brian Cage, they come from behind. They attack Cody and Darby Allin and Arn Anderson on the outside. We see a small amount of tension between Ricky Starks and Brian Cage when they both have one hand on the TNT Championship. So maybe there's a bit of tension there. Maybe a storyline to be had somewhere down the line. But in the end, Taz kind of regains their focus, and Cage and Starks, they attack Cody and Darby Allin. I think they drive Darby Allin through part of the stage on the outside. they even attempted to kind of do further injury to his arm with the car door until big Will Hobbs came along and chased them off. So I'm sure we'll find out more the ongoing storyline there on Wednesday in Dynamite, but nice bit of storyline development there. Let's talk about the AEW Women's Championship then, because we did kind of briefly discuss it when we were talking about the NWA Women's Championship earlier on. But Hikaru Shida versus Nyla Rose. Now, admittedly, they were in quite a tough spot because they've had a championship change to come off the back of, and three really top matches at the kind of start of the card. But in this, you had a lot of outside interference from Vicky Guerrero. I thought that the match was a bit weak, to be honest with you, and I honestly thought that Nyla Rose had the better share of the offense. But it ended up with Shida retaining her championship, and I thought it was a bit of a weak finish. But I'm going to start with Griz. Give us your thoughts on this one. I know that you're a big fan of women's wrestling. We've spoken about it before, but give us your thoughts on this one. And is the AEW women's division really clicking at the moment?
Well, you know what? That was a loaded plate right there. So I will say, yes, I am absolutely chuffed that Hikaru Shida retained the belt. It is very disappointing, obviously, right now that most of the women's division, because clearly they very much relied on a lot of Japanese talent. You had Emi Sakura, and then you had Yuka Sakazaki, and then Riho, yes. And I'm so sorry. I am blanking on the fourth one. The sweet, cute little wolf girl. Oh my god, this is going to kill me later. But it may come to me in a minute, so we'll see how that goes. But they're doing all right with the talent that they've got, and Shida is an excellent champion. The only thing that I am going to bring up, match was fine, yada yada yada. But they need to book Shida so much better than they are, because I think there was kind of implication earlier when we spoke about the women's title match of the NWA division. Of it seems like they're kind of booking the NWA women's title better than they are doing their AEW title, and it's the kind of way of that match was booked. It was okay, yeah, it's going to be at the buy-in and yada yada, but the way that this match was booked was just, oh, okay, right, well, Nyla Rose, do you want a title shot? Right, cool. So that was on Wednesday, and I don't know, I just feel like there needs to be more work put into this belt, because there's a lot of talent there, and arguably it may not be the best women's division, but they can work with what they've got. And sorry, I know I've been prattling along for very long. The one last thing is the only person that I will accept beating Shida, and I'm waiting for you to react to this, is the only person to beat Shida is obviously Dr. Britt Baker, DMD.
Yeah. I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. Yeah.
Chris,
give us your thoughts on this one, because I know you've got some opinions on the AEW women's division, and you kind of briefly compared it to the way they're booking the NWA women's division. But give us your thoughts on what we're down here, buddy.
Yeah, it wasn't an awful match by any means. I think it was in a difficult position, as you said, where it was on the card.
Yes, they were.
I feel like Nyla Rose has had a few kind of cracks at it now as well. So I think they've got a real problem with her not winning it or keeping it as she had before. I also think you're going to have, though, a heel champion in steps Dr. Britt Baker to line up this champion, Shida knocking them down, and they've done that. So you need creative ways to finish these matches to keep these storylines going, because if Shida wins, it's going to be a clean win, isn't it? And then essentially there's no leg to stand on. So I really think they need to have a heel champion and to keep sneaking wins, just to draw out these feuds a little, because they're just knocking them down. I think, well, who else now? You know, you've got Big Swole, who's obviously very good, and there's plenty of fantastic, talented women. And when AEW started, it was one of the things I was looking forward to the most, actually. But I have to say, it's been an underwhelming year for the women's division. You know, out of, unfortunately, Brandy Rhodes kind of sponsored heels content is helping the actual main point, which is the title scene. So not a bad match. Quick shout out to Vicky Guerrero, who continues to be just amazing at what she does, and it was nice to see her use that kendo stick as well, because it was, I don't know, that kind of just came out of nowhere for me. I was quite pleased with that spot, and yeah, afterwards kind of slapping Nyla, you know, and giving her abuse. I think she's very good at that. But yeah, I just think they've got a problem with the challengers, not the talent, but I just think they need someone else as champion, although I love Sheeta, I think as time has come. And then, yeah, just drag it out a little, you know, and have a long-term feud, but it has to have a heel champion just to get some longevity out of these challengers, because I think they're just going to run out of credible women to line up for it.
And Mags, yourself, is Dr. Britt Baker going to be the saviour of the AEW women's division?
It has to be, surely to God. I mean, she was the face that we expected to get at the beginning, and it felt like she maybe wasn't quite ready for that role. And I think actually getting injured did her the world of good, because it allowed her to kind of work on a character more than the wrestling. I mean, the wrestling is from Britt Baker is outstanding anyway. Going to this match though, I think. I like the fact that Nyla Rose had those like Mega Man vibes with her outfit. I thought that was a cool little throwback to, especially to a retro gamer. And what I did also think was good, and it kind of touches on a point that Chris made about knocking these heels down and getting the clean wins. We kind of like saw the beginnings of maybe a face turn from Nyla when she was slapped by Vicky Guerrero. You would expect Nyla to have absolutely laid waste to anyone done that, but she almost cowered. She almost like was saddened and almost upset that Vicky gave her the slap. So perhaps that could be the genesis of a Nyla Rose face turn. But yeah, I think all eyes are pointed on Britt Baker now being the next big challenger for Sheeta.
Yeah, exactly.
Personally, I don't like the idea of a Nyla face turn. She needs to be heel. I think, like, if anything, this may be the kind of point where it's like they realize that Vicky Guerrero is not working. So maybe this kind of be the first step of
breakaway.
Just get rid of her. Yeah.
Yeah, well, Griz, you spoke about the dream match you didn't know you wanted or needed until Orange Cassidy faced John Silver. FTR versus Young Bucks is a dream match that we've all had on our kind of fantasy wish list for many, many years now. And this was the match. This was the kind of the payoff, you could say, for the AEW Tag Team Championship. So, yeah, I mean, this match has had an interesting build. I know that the build to this match has had its critics online, especially with the Young Bucks kind of coming out in that backstage promo saying that if they don't win the tag titles at Full Gear, they will never wrestle for the tag titles ever again. Chris, I'm going to throw it over to you. What are your thoughts on the match in particular? Match that kind of thinking about and wishing for ever since FTR with the revival back in the NXT days, let alone when they were on the main roster. But did the build take a bit of a weird turn when the Bucks supposedly started super kicking everybody in sight and Tony Schiavone? Did the build do it for you?
It was an interesting build, let's say. Yeah, obviously it plays into a much wider picture with Hangman as well, and Omega and FTR kind of poisoning the Elite as well. So I think you have to keep that in balance as well. I think the build between, yes, I agree that like they came across as heelish. I think if they would have worked harder to make that seem like they were just mentally affected by FTR and they were frustrated, more than a full heel turn, and they just couldn't get them out of their minds, almost like an obsession. If they had done that slightly differently, it still would have worked, I think, in my mind, because they really they had every reason to hate FTR, and for that, FTR for their part were brilliant, healing up, breaking apart the Elite or driving a wedge between them. So the build essentially has been on from way back in the day, December. I think they said, what was it, 18th Matt Jackson put out that tweet about, one day FTR will fight the Young Bucks and the world will rejoice. And yeah, we did rejoice. And I'll talk about a match in a minute. Let's take aside the heel face dynamic. If you would have stuck to who they were, the build was great. Tully getting involved, the ankle injury. I think it was satisfactory for what it was. But I don't think this is over either. So there's plenty more to get out of it. So I think they've got some gas left in the tank. But we'll talk about it in a minute.
Well, let's touch on some of the highlights of the match, and because this was all in all a very, very good tag match. I don't know if it lived up to everybody's hype or kind of 5-star expectations, but it did deliver on a lot of fronts. I mean, for starters, some of the tag team offense. I mean, you had the FTR take a page out of the Hart Foundation's book and the Steiner's playbook as well. And later on, they even did the DIY Tommaso Ciampa and Johnny Gargano finisher as well with the running knee and super kick deal. The Bucks hooked in a double sharpshooter on FTR as well, one on the rampway, one inside the ring. So another little bit of a throwback to Bret Hart and the Hart Foundation days. FTR hit a spiked inverted pile driver, but they couldn't close down the match from there. But Cash goes right against their no flips, just fists policy by attempting and missing a springboard 450 splash, allowing Matt Jackson to hit one final super kick to cover and to win the match for the Young Bucks, becoming a new AEW World Tag Team Champions. So even Kenny Omega came out to celebrate and congratulate the Young Bucks. But starting with you, Mags, give us your thoughts on this tag team title match between the Bucks and FTR.
Yeah, as someone who's kind of bread and butter has always been tag team wrestling, this had the opportunity to be one of the best matches ever, or just overhyped beyond all comprehension. And I think it just floated that line. I think the work rate was absolutely brilliant. The callbacks to all the other tag teams of old, I absolutely loved. The only thing that they could have added for me to really make me pop would have been if they did a Doomsday Device. That would have been absolutely epic. But yeah, I thought the match, the work rate was brilliant. I thought the selling from the Bucks was superb. The way that the FTR was getting frustrated because they couldn't put the Bucks away to the point where they were trying something that is not in their wheelhouse at all, and that was the downfall. The slap. They really worked on Matt's leg. They took his boot off. They pretty much broke his leg, but yet he was still able to win with a super kick on a leg with no boot, which was also broken. It felt like the finish was a little bit ropey, but aside from that, this was everything that I expected this match to be, and I loved every second of it.
Griz?
Well, you know what? I'm coming here with a different perspective. I thought I hated the build-up. I'm not gonna lie. FTR arguably have been the biggest bust in AEW so far, and the build-up of the Young Bucks makes me not care about them. So arguably, going into this match, I didn't care. I mean, I was like, all right, I would rather the Young Bucks to win over FTR, because FTR are, again, this is just my opinion, FTR have not had a good match since they've been in AEW, or even if they've had, like, you know, shades of a decent match, is because of who they've worked with, like, you know, like people like Best Friends and yada yada. But I mean, like, this match wasn't bad, like, so I'm going to give them some credit for that. But I don't know, a super kick with your bare fleeps, and that wins the belt is like, come on. I don't know. I thought it was kind of a little bit of a bad finish, my opinion.
And Chris, was there a little bit of too much hype for this match? And you know, did it deliver? I'd say it was a good match, but was it a great match?
I actually think it was a really great match, and finish aside, because I see that point completely. The callbacks, I mean, I made a note of all the tag team references I thought I'd seen in that. And I've got Heart Foundation, Dudley Boys, the Hardys, because at one point it was a Twist of Fate, one time Steiners, DIY, and obviously Midnight Express is a bit more obvious with FTR. But yeah, it was, I think it was a really great match. Griz talked earlier about Omega and Hangman maybe needing a few more minutes just to really, when a match becomes epic because it doesn't end when you think it's going to happen. And that happened about 4 times in this match for me. Great camera work, covered up a lot of the moments where Dash or Cash would like leap in last minute, same with the Young Bucks. So for me, it had that real, you actually don't know when this is going to end, So for me, it had reasonable build up, a little bit confusing maybe. Great work rate. Absolutely fantastic callbacks to it. Was a tag team tribute match, wasn't it? It was a tribute to everything that made those teams who they were. And yeah, good selling, I think, by Matt as well. It takes a lot to remember to kind of limp, constantly throughout a match. Really good match, I think. Finish aside, the right winners, of course, I think. However, of course, as everyone's pointed out, the stipulation really did signpost the Young Bucks winning, unfortunately. We knew we weren't going to have any situation like Cody where there was a different belt created to chase. So yeah, bit sad that, because, and again, it goes against whatever heel dynamic they were trying to build. It's a very face stipulation, isn't it, to build? And why would you do that? It just makes no sense unless some person in authority has put that on you, or unless you've challenged multiple times. I don't know why the Bucks would even do that. It makes little to no sense. So take away the build completely, look at the match, and yeah, really great, really strong, really exciting stuff, and a lovely tribute, I would say, to tag team wrestling. I think they did it.
And we have new tag team champions. But let's talk about one of the most talked about matches coming out of Full Gear from last night, and that's the Elite Deletion match at the Hardy compound. Matt Hardy versus Sammy Guevara. I think we've seen every type of deletion match that Matt Hardy's ever been in, whether it be with Impact or WWE. I mean, this one, Sammy turned up in a golf cart, the Spanish God golf cart. Matt Hardy come along in his monster truck and promptly squashed the golf cart. The match officially starts when they fight into the woods. They even fight onto the Hardy's front lawn before fighting towards a conveniently placed AEW wrestling ring. Hardy smashes Guevara through a table. We then see Santana and Ortiz appear to prevent they appear out of nowhere to prevent a pinfall and to start the beatdown on Hardy. Then Private Party, they pull up and they come to Matt Hardy's aid. Hardy and Sammy, they start shooting fireworks at one another, but quite relevant with it being November the 5th a couple of days ago, but highly dangerous. Don't try that one at home, boys and girls. And just as Hardy's
accepted.
Just as Hardy's about to cleanse Sammy in the lake of reincarnation, we see a masked figure who turns out to be Gangrel. Gangrel has the Hurricane Shane Helms tied up, but Gangrel is chased off by Private Party. Sammy gets locked into the dome of deletion. The match takes a turn as they fight into a second ring. Sammy uses the turnbuckles to attack Hardy and eventually chokes Hardy out with the ring ropes. Then Sammy hits a huge swanton off of this 20-foot ladder inside the ring, driving Hardy through a table. There's a twist of fate from Hardy and a spear sending Sammy through another table on the outside before busting, which busted Sammy opened up quite badly from the head. They seem to be bleeding from the mouth as well. Then Hardy smashes a chair down onto Sammy Guevara's head, covers and gets the pinfall. So Sammy is then stuffed into a wheelie bin, I've got down here, loaded into the back of a truck and taken away by Senor Benjamin. So a lot to unpick here. Mags, I'm going to start with you to start the unpicking. Lots of kind of callbacks, lots of interesting cameos with the Hurricane and Gangrel. But give us your thoughts on this one, buddy.
Yeah, this is probably for me the lowest point of the card. as much as the Matt Hardy kind of cinematic matches have been really good, I think this is just maybe one too many. It was literally just every broken universe idea all thrown into one. You saw literally everything he's ever mentioned in the broken or the walking universe at some point or other. The jumping of the shark with Hurricane and then Gangrel, that was fun, but kind of unneeded. And what really kind of ruined it the most for me was the production. I don't think it needed the commentary over the top of it. I felt that the match should have been able to speak for itself. And also, I was very jarred by there was a section where they were wrestling in the mud. And then 2 seconds later, they were going towards the dome, and Sammy Guevara's t-shirt was dry when it was absolutely sodden with mud just a few minutes ago. And it kind of made me realise that this had been filmed in sections, which kind of like took me out of it. I don't get the point of the finish as well, because what was the need of getting Matt Hardy over when Sammy is clearly the future of AEW? I didn't like the call back to Matt's injury with the head injury going through the tables, which they did with Sammy. It felt like it just didn't fit in with the rest of the show for me. But hopefully, Matt said it on the match, saying how hopefully that's the end of it. And yeah, same with me. I think hopefully this is like this storyline put to bed.
Chris, give us your thoughts on this one.
Yeah, it's some excellent points, Max. There, I think it was a tribute to every kind of deletion or broken universe like tropes that you could imagine. I considered showing this match to my wife this morning, and I think better of it because I thought, where do you start? It was really entertaining. But how do you start? Like the Hurricane is in relation to and I try and, when I review these shows, I try and think, if I was a casual or first time viewer, what would I think of this match? And yes, I think it was entertaining, but I'd be lost with all the many references I think in that. I don't mind. It made slightly uncomfortable viewing that they did call back Hardy's terrible kind of I guess you could call it a botch, but let's not get into that. But as Max said, it was clearly like pre-produced and then cut together. So that did make some interesting camera work. So when Sammy got his head smashed by the chair, it made it look quite good. Same with when he got literally thrown straight at him. There were some clever cuts in there. The kind of almost, I suppose, I want to say swanton bomb off the ladder, which is something we haven't mentioned yet, by Sammy was incredible. I thought he was going to hit his head on the roof, of course. It was quite high up. But yeah, really lots of fun. Fireworks shooting was great. Great to see Gangrel. Great to see Shane Helms in there, and the Hardy family, Sonya Benjamin, Neo. It literally was everything. I think if we wind the clock back, this was the match that probably they wanted to do with Chris Jericho and Matt Hardy when he first came in. He invited him onto the Hardy compound. We never got that match because of the lockdown. And I get the feeling that's what that would have been. Place we've got to this point. And because the other match that we talked about didn't go to plan, I wanted them to finish with some real closure, and that's what this did. And like we all, I think, can agree on, that's got to be the last of it now. Sammy not being there, I think there's a reason for that. I think, well, I don't want to spoil anything, but it'll be talking about the Inner Circle and maybe someone new, I think, can tie into Sammy's absence and then eventual comeback. So we'll get to that. I think there's something at play there, actually. But yeah, really fun match. Just bonkers.
Yeah. And Griz, what are your takeaway moments from this match?
Well, I thought it was okay, but arguably, at the end of the day, it may have been the worst of the deletion matches. But it was still fun in its own right. It had its own shtick. And then the fact that, Senor Benjamin at the end of driving them away, like that got a big pop from the crowd, which was awesome. But it was kind of one of these things where it's like, you know what? We've seen this multiple times before, and like arguably it's been done so much better because Jeremy Borash has been behind the helm when it comes to this, and I mean it was fine, and I would hope that this is the end of it, but like that kind of that one spot where Hardy kind of speared Guevara through the table, and then Guevara was like, "Oh my god, the back of my head is bleeding." It's like, you didn't need to do that, because I mean, in real life when that happened, your head didn't burst open, but so
Your brain scrambled.
Yeah, exactly. Big old scrambled brains, delicious breakfast for everyone. But yeah, it was fine, I guess, as my kind of takeaway. And I mean, you kind of seen that, like, the blood that was on Sammy Guevara. It's like, that's not real. So
yeah, I think probably not one to show your wife, as Chris established, if she's not already a wrestling fan. So there we go. Shall we move on? Let's talk about MJF. Let's talk about MJF versus Chris Jericho. And if MJF wins, he gets to join the Inner Circle. Now, but before we discuss the match, I just want to go on record to say that right off the bat, I thought that the Dinner Debonair segment from a few weeks ago was the best pro wrestling skit I've seen in a long, long time. What's your thoughts, guys? I don't think I've spoke to anybody on this podcast about it, but Chris, I think you were a big fan of Dinner Debonair, weren't you?
I was so impressed by MJF singing. We all know Jericho can sing.
It was great.
It's on the wrestling, as always, and will continue to be a variety act, and I think it was just brilliant. It was unexpected, I was a really big fan of it. And as I said on that show, this is a flirtation between two straight talents. It's not a fight, and that plays into how what happened after this match as well. We've got to remember they're not really feuding. This is about gaining respect. So the fact they had a dinner and a song together, I see it more as a kind of straight romance rather than a feud between the two. So it played into that brilliantly. Romance, if you will. Big fan. There was supposed to be a dream sequence, according to Sonic I'd read, and I wouldn't have even minded that, to be fair, because it was so bonkers, and that might have pleased Jim Cornette just a little if it hadn't been like. But yeah, really good segment, and it got people talking and watching in their millions. Do you know what I mean? So the Demo God and the ratings ruler did the business. They can't deny they are the two most watchable people, I suppose, apart from John Silver on AEW. So yeah, great segment.
Yeah, and one thing I haven't mentioned about this whole show yet is that they had probably more fans in attendance at Daily's Place during the COVID era than they ever have done before. I think they had about 1,000 paying fans to watch Full Gear last night, and you certainly heard them all. They certainly turned the mics up that was in front of the fans last night when Chris Jericho made his entrance, and they were all singing along to Judas. That was absolutely fantastic, as always. But in this one, Jericho tries the Judas effect back elbow early on, only finding the steel of the ring post on the outside. We even see Jericho break out a Frankensteiner, which is not something we've seen him do before. MJF focuses on Jericho's injured arm throughout the match. MJF hits a code breaker and a heat seeker, but only for a close near fall. And after not being able to make Jericho tap out to the salt of the earth, MJF calls out Wardlow to come to the ring with MJF's dynamite diamond ring, of course. Jericho ducks the loaded punch from MJF and then gets thrown his baseball bat from the outside by Jake Hager. However, the referee, with the referee's back turned, MJF uses a page out of the late great Eddie Guerrero's playbook, fakes being hit, falls to the canvas. All the referee sees is Jericho with the bat and MJF on the canvas. Then from out of nowhere, MJF rolls up Jericho to get the quick and some might say cheap pinfall. And guys, at the end of it all, Jericho welcomes MJF and Wardlow into the Inner Circle. So personally, I thought the ending sequence was quite entertaining. I wasn't that wowed by the match itself, to be honest with you. But I'd love to know your thoughts. Starting with Griz, let's throw it to you. MJF versus Chris Jericho. Did it do it for you, buddy?
Again, it was fine. The one thing that you didn't mention is the fact that MJF had the tights. So he always said going in the build up that I will do anything to win, and then there you go. That was what he'd done to win, and it is interesting because, like, you know, as MJF always said, is, well, you know, Wardlow isn't hired by AEW; he's hired by me. So by proxy, I guess he's in the inner circle, but I feel like that might be the initial tear of, like, because obviously one day Wardlow is going to leave MJF, and evidently he's going to leave the inner circle, and obviously, you know, 2021 Wardlow for world champ. Let's do this.
Could happen. But
Should happen.
Yeah, he's a fantastic talent. Yeah, I can't wait for him to break away from MJF and show us what he's really capable of. But Mags, throwing it over to yourself. Did this do it for you? Did you find this match entertaining? Are you happy that MJF is now part of the inner circle?
Yeah, I thought this match was very, very entertaining. I just really enjoyed, like Griz said, that MJF's got this like never say die, kind of do anything to win attitude, and it showed at the end that that's really what kind of got him into the inner circle, because Jericho they were hugging because of it, and it kind of like showed Jericho that MJF is like him. That he isn't soft, and they really kind of played on that. The way he kind of really leaned into that salt of the earth after working on the arm. I thought it was a really interesting way to end the match with threatening with the diamond dynamite diamond ring, and then the like you said, the callback to the Eddie Guerrero stuff with the bat, the heat between Wardlow and Hager. That really kind of tells a story to come. I think I agree with Griz about Wardlow splitting from MJF soon, and I think he'll be a face as well, because if you look back at some of his appearances on Being the Elite, especially the one with everybody's favourite John Silver, he really showed his kind of he's got character chops as well. You don't really see a lot of that in Dynamite, but on Being the Elite, you can see he's really got that character, and I think he'd make a really good face, and he'd make a really good world champion. So I'm all on board a Wardlow for world champion shout. But yeah, I enjoyed this match. It was a really fun match.
John, the Wardlow train. There we go, everybody.
and Chris, throwing it over to you. Give us your thoughts on the match, and a quick question for you as a side note. You know, are the dynamics of the inner circle about to change, and could it lead to some interesting storylines?
Yeah, I think so. Let's talk about the match first. It was part Chris Jericho tribute, part greatest hits. He pulled out a lot of his moves that we haven't seen in a while, like a Frankensteiner, and we haven't even mentioned the fact that MJF came out dressed in Jericho attire.
Yeah.
So. Carrying on,
I forgot that was amazing. Like the layout jacket and everything. Oh, that was incredible.
This carries on my idea that I think, this is a bromance between them, isn't it? Look at the way he reacted to that finish. He wanted him to beat him, really, I think, secretly, being as devious as he could be. The multiple kind of false finishes were great because, he didn't get disqualified. He still had to roll him up. And it was really good to see. You know, I love MJF so much. And I was looking at the age difference between these two, and I just think, man, like, how good are you going to be, Maxwell Jacob Freeman? You know, in like 2 years, if you're this good now, terrifying. As for the dynamics themselves, I think I mentioned now Sammy's probably going to take another maybe leave of absence, because you probably should, having been deleted from the universe, as it were. So he will come back. And what I really liked was how they've already made clear that the inner circle is split on whether they like MJF or not. You've got almost a 50-50 split there, which I quite like, because when he does come back, there will be competition to be the young lion in that position. I think the really interesting thing about this match was what's going to come afterwards. I don't personally see MJF in the inner circle, and I don't want him to be in the inner circle. So I really think he's going to do some manipulating when he's inside that. It just doesn't suit the vibe of that team. So I really think there's going to be more to it, and that's what I'm really looking forward to. What happens next? Because the best storylines wrestling is when you don't know what's going to happen. And I genuinely don't know what's going to happen next. You just can't see him just being part of that inner circle. Plus, there's 7 of them now, and that's too big a number. But yeah, I'm also going to hop on the Wardlow train because he is, a beast. And it's very similar to how Dave Bautista was received when he was in Evolution. He's breaking away from that group. It reminds me a lot of that. And the pop for that was insane when he finally did that. So very reminiscent of that. But yeah, definitely going to be a big change in the inner circle. And I like that. I really like that. So top marks. Yeah, not a tremendous match by any means, but we don't expect that of Jericho, and we don't expect it of MJF. It's their characters that draw us.
Yeah, the storyline's going to be interesting for sure. Go ahead.
I remember one more thing. On the back of what Chris just said, MJF should be he should be in the inner circle, and I think that's a perfect way to describe that. As they are really going to be all over the place when it comes to MJF. And I think the end game with this will be that MJF is going to kind of corrupt the rest of the inner circle, and then turn them against Jericho. Like a mutiny. We're pirates, and we're gonna strike a mutiny against the captain. And I feel like that's how this is gonna go.
Shout out Paul Burchill.
Right.
Oh yeah.
Mags, I'm going to throw it to you, Mags, very briefly before we talk about the main event. Any thoughts on kind of the dynamics of the inner circle with MJF and Wardlow being included? Who might be there? Who might be the last man standing when all's said and done at the end of this storyline? Where do you consider it going?
Yeah, I think Griz made some good points that we're gonna see a mutiny. I think MJF has got that kind of charisma where he can bring people to his viewpoint. He can manipulate people enough that they turn against Jericho, and maybe this will be kind of a way of Jericho to go away for a while and maybe freshen up. MJF taking over control of Inner Circle. I mean, Inner Circle as a heel faction, it's been more kind of comedy heel. You've seen the Statement Stampede match and stuff like that. They haven't really delved into being a full heelish faction. And I think as MJF taking over the faction. I mean, we've seen how he doesn't like being a subordinate. He did it with Cody, quickly turned on him. I think we're going to see him kind of like trying to usurp Jericho and turning the Inner Circle into being a proper dastardly heel faction.
Yeah, that's going to be exciting for sure. But let's talk about the main event then, gents. The I Quit match for the AEW World Title. Jon Moxley, or as my T-shirt says, John, I can't do it as well as Justin Roberts, versus Eddie Kingston. So I've got to say, and I'm sure you guys will agree that Eddie Kingston. There you go. Keep going. Yeah, you're there. But Eddie Kingston's rise and his story has been absolutely phenomenal. But let's kind of talk about this match then, the main event. So you can definitely feel there was a big match vibe. You obviously had that tremendous ring announcement by Justin Roberts of Jon Moxley, of course. But this match, like most of the other matches tonight, very quickly went to the outside. Both men took a lot of punishment in this match. It didn't take long before weapons were introduced, including chairs and a barbed wire baseball bat. Both men were bloody, and several barbed wire shots were kind of hit during this match. Kingston fights through the pain to hit 2 German suplexes and then punishes Moxley across the head with some more barbed wire loaded punches. Then Kingston gets suplexed through a chair. Thumbtacks are introduced as well by Moxley, by Kingston, but Moxley gets driven through it with a uranage. After a couple of well-placed kicks to Moxley's groin, shall we say, Kingston pours rubbing alcohol into the back of Moxley before punching Mox with a full fist of thumbtacks. Moxley comes back with a pile driver and a paradigm shift, and finally Moxley hooks in one final bulldog choke, this time with barbed wire wrapped around his arm to add insult to injury, and Kingston says the words "I quit," the ring looks like a war zone. Both guys looks like they've been to battle. It was a tremendous match, like I say, a real kind of fairy tale story, you could say, for Eddie Kingston since having his debut match against Cody for the TNT Championship a few months back. But I'm going to start with you, Chris. This AEW World Title match, another match that had a tremendous build, two tremendous characters, and this was a good match. But my only kind of drawbacks on this is that I felt that it was probably a few too many weapons. I would like to have seen maybe less weapons. But I think the stipulation hindered the quality of the match as well. To be honest with you, I'd have preferred it not to have had the I quit stipulation. You take away the drama of the pinfalls and the close near falls. But Chris, I'm going to throw it over to you to give us your thoughts on this one.
Yeah, you've actually nailed it spot on there, John. Yeah, I'm not a fan of the I quit stipulation in general, because it is very hard to have an explosive finish. You know it's going to have to be slow and dragged out. Apart from was it The Rock? Who had their voice recorded to say I quit? That was him.
Mankind and The Rock.
So that's creative.
Also, The Miz and John Cena.
Yes, that's true, yeah. But you know what I mean? There's only so many ways you can get to that, and inevitably it's a slow kind of finish, isn't it? Because if you knock someone off something high, they're going to be unconscious. If you put them to sleep, they're asleep. So it has to be some kind of submission. Now, I actually quite like the barbed wire bulldog choke because it was believable. And the finish itself was really good because, Kingston with tears in his eyes and Moxley kind of saying, you have to quit, you have to quit. It reminded me a lot of the film Warrior, if you've ever seen that with Tom Hardy. He doesn't want to keep doing it to his brother. And to go back to the build, these two, they are brothers. They've been through the wars together. They've known each other for many years now. I think they said since about 2008. And I love a build like that because it's real, man. That footage, I love seeing footage from other shows and indie shows. It just makes it seem so legit. The promos they had were amazing. Yes, it's difficult to live up to that hype with that type of match because it quickly devolves into just violent spots, and that was great for what it was. But I think because of the emotional type of match, it would have been nice to see some kind of more submission attempts and more pinfall attempts, and in the end something similar to how it went down. That's fine, but I'm just not a fan of that stipulation in general because it does kind of build to a rather slow finish, I have to say. But build up, fantastic. You've got more bang for your buck for the violence and the money. And I think just to see the look on Kingston's face as he had to quit and the tears in his eyes, it was emotional, and I thought it was quite a nice kind of somber ending in a way to the pay-per-view because, Moxley won, but it took him a while to get his energy back, and he knew that it moved him to have to do that to his friend. So I think from a storytelling point of view, great. From a match point of view, pretty good, pretty strong. But unfortunately, not the best match on the card. So unfortunately, because it ended the show, it leaves you with a slightly underwhelming feeling, I think.
And Griz, your thoughts on this main event?
I think this was awesome. Yes, I will agree with Chris there that it was not the best match on the card, but Jesus, the ending of this match was incredible. The fact that Moxley has done the bully choke recently, and then has made Kingston tap out. But when he done it with barbed wire, oh my god! Seriously, there was there was a lot of wire there. When he wrapped that barbed wire around Kingston's throat, oh my god! Match was pretty good. Obviously, I'm not gonna lie, I kind of expected a little bit more, but you know what? The two of them, I think did really well. So the match we got, pretty good, but the ending was phenomenal. And so that is the end of that.
Yeah, and Mags, take us home on this one. What do you think of
Yeah, I kind of take a lot of Griz and Chris's points on board, and yeah, the ordinarily an I Quit match kind of does saddle you with a slow finish, but I think for this match in particular, it worked because of the history of the two guys. They worked in hardcore matches in RCW and in CZW, so it kind of it was their whole careers all coming to a end. They've had Moxley's had the hearts of his WWE run, then obviously the lows when he left, and then the hearts of AEW where he felt like he's left the guys that he knew in RCW and CZW behind. So the emotion was there. The fact that he never quit in the first match was there. It kind of meant that it needed to be an I Quit match, and I think they worked it just well enough that it came off as a good end to the pay-per-view for me. The fact that we got that emotion. I mean, I've enjoyed a lot of Eddie Kingston's work, but I've never felt this emotionally attached to a character in such a long time. His promo work is amazing. I mean, they even use it. They use it on Being the Elite, where they just give him a random item and he's got to do a promo on it. He's just so good at it, and yeah, I really enjoyed this match. The thumbtacks, the barbed wire, the way that Moxley had to go to depths that he didn't want to go to finish his friend. The way he wanted to draw a line under the end of it at the end of the match and say, "Look, we're done. Let's call it an end." And the way Eddie just couldn't accept it because he'd broken his promise to his mum. Yeah, I loved the whole build up to it. Whilst the match was never going to live up to that build, I think they did a really solid job.
Yeah, I think Eddie Kingston's been an absolute revelation this year, to be honest with you. And well, I say this year, in the last couple of months, he's really just come on the scene with AEW and getting his contracts and everything. But yeah, the main event was very, very good. But I think it suffered slightly by being an I Quit match, but they did the best that they possibly could with the stipulation. And like I say, that ending, I've got to echo what Griz said, it was a phenomenal ending. But there we go. And then, of course, to cap off the show, Kenny Omega, the new number one contender, came out and had a brief stare down, a brief face off across the ring ropes to the current champion, the reigning champion, Jon Moxley, of course. And that looks to be the main event, possibly for the next pay-per-view, which is AEW Revolution, I think February, if I'm not mistaken. So I want to go to you one by one. Say that again.
27th, I believe.
27th February, yeah. Yeah, but starting with you, Chris, give us your overall thoughts and the one kind of takeaway moment or highlight for you.
Yeah, really the strongest card of the year, and yeah, maybe that second best card that AEW have done. We've all said that top to bottom, with the exception of maybe Shida and Rose, every match was good to great. There was emotion throughout the card. There was moments of hilarity, and so it was a really strong variety act, and it crucially carried on, some long-term storylines, I think. So it really did everything right, and I was really worried because it had so much hype given into it that it wasn't going to live up to it. But I think it did. I was really pleased with it, and yeah, so God bless those guys, man, because that's hard to do sometimes, live up to that kind of hype. It's got a lot. It's coming a lot, AEW, with its pay-per-view, like not only in terms of production, but how they balance the card as well. So I think this was one of the best examples of how they can get it so right sometimes, and everything came together on the night. So yeah, for me, really pleased with it. Definitely worth the money, I would say, and something I would actually rewatch, which I don't often say, that I would like to kind of rewatch this soon. Because it had almost everything in it. So yeah, really good. Looking forward very much to Omega Moxley. That's the kind of, they've already had a fantastic match. This time it's going to be more wrestling purist style, which I think Omega wants. So I look forward to him, hopefully, I think, dethroning Jon Moxley. But yeah, great show. Top to bottom, can't really fault it for the most part. And how often can you say that nearly every match was a winner?
And Griz, your closing thoughts on Full Gear?
Well, I don't know, controversial. I thought this was, about 7 out of 10 pay-per-view. Like, everything wasn't bad. Like, I mean, but there was a lot that could have potentially been better. I mean, as I say, like, maybe if Kenny and Hangman maybe got a couple more minutes, just a little bit more. And then, but I mean, this was a decent pay-per-view. I'm sorry, Chris, but I would, in my own opinion, like, say that Revolution was much better in terms of pay-per-views this year. Granted, obviously, that may be because there was crowds there, so you got to take that sort of aspect into things. But I think Revolution was pretty fucking awesome, and I mean, like, obviously, again, I am not taking away from the fact that this was pretty decent, and I'm not saying it's bad in any sense of the word. So it was, yeah, as I say, about a 7 out of 10.
Mm-hmm.
And Mags, can you go any higher than 7 out of 10? What's your closing thoughts and any particular highlights from this show?
Yeah, I think I'm probably going to lean towards more to Chris. I felt that this is probably AEW's best show since the original All In. It was the most invested I've been in an AEW show all the way through. The highlights is obviously the Dream Tag Team match for me. I thought that was it was just something that I've been waiting for so long for, and it really didn't disappoint in terms of action. If I were to nitpick, I'd still say there's issues with production. There was the commentary over the Elite Deletion match didn't need to be there. They didn't reference Hangman when he was at the back of the FTR and Bucks match, which I felt would have played into the storyline better. But these are all little tiny nitpicks. The biggest problem I had with it was after we got past the Shida and Nyla Rose match, there was no come down match for me. It was all kind of all one pace, which when the card is this stacked, it's hard to get that kind of come down match. I understand that, but I do tend to enjoy a card more when there's ebbs and flows, when there's a heater and then a cooler and then a heater and then a cooler, and you get that, where this was all heater from pretty much an hour and a half in. It was all 100%, but that's massively nitpicking. I enjoyed it, pretty much everything on the card outside the elite deletion match. So yeah, for me, I'd give it a strong A.
I feel like that's kind of like the New Japan style of booking of, oh, we'll bump all these matches up to the last three matches, like, oh, here we go, boom, 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 big match, and I actually kind of agree with you in the way that, like, there should have been a buffer, and that's where I feel that Orange Cassidy versus John Silver should have been between the two, like, big matches, because like, you know what, like, I mean, I'm assuming we all stayed up till near 5 a.m. to watch this.
Yeah. I mean, for me, you could have switched the Elite Deletion match and the Orange Cassidy match, and I think you would have had enough of a kind of a break there to go into the last two or three big matches. But yeah, having like 4 or 5 matches in a row where you were heavily invested, yeah, it kind of got a little bit tiring.
Because, like, see the last pay-per-view when they had the Most of Mayhem match. I feel like that was wedged between 2 really big matches. So, like, the Most of Mayhem match was less than 10 minutes, and I thought that was perfect. That was a perfect kind of thing where it's like, right,
palate cleanser. Yeah,
yes,
palate cleanser.
Yes, thank you. Exactly, that was a palate cleanser, and it was the kind of thing where it was less than 10 minutes, and it was between 2 big guys. So, like, it was still a big match, but at the same time, like, it was less than 10 minutes. That's the kind of thing you need. Like, and I don't know. I feel like this pay-per-view was I would put this down as fine. As I say, it was probably about a 7 out of 10. Like, I may not be as big on it as most of you, but like, obviously, I am a big AEW fan, so don't get me wrong. But like, I don't know. I think Revolution was incredible as a pay-per-view. But I mean, again, that's just my opinion.
Just to counter Griz's point, I think though it sounds like we're complaining about the card being too good and too stacked. You know,
it's not a first world problem.
Yeah, exactly. So, other way, like, isn't it a great thing that all these matches have had so much good build and so much emotional build up to it? I understand completely about pacing an event, but yeah, I think it's a good problem to have when all the matches have value. You know, quite frankly, I used to watch WWE pay-per-views back in the day, and I'd be grateful if maybe 3 out of the 7 or so matches were good. This was not the case here, you know, and I agree. Revolution was the same, you know, top to bottom. So yeah, I completely see your point about pacing, but yeah, let's not forget this is not a bad thing to have match after match after match, which has some reason to watch it.
Well, there we go. I think there's no doubt that last night's pay-per-view was great, but all this talk of Revolution from February is going to have to... It's making me want to go back and watch that show as well. So there we go. I've got a busy weekend. But guys, I want to thank you so much for being a part of this AEW Full Gear review. I'm going to throw it to you, first of all, Mags, just to quickly plug your shows, what your show's called, and where can we find them?
Okay, so I've got way too many podcasts for any one man to do.
You had 3 last time I spoke to you. Have you got any more?
I actually have, and I've killed one off and gained 2. I've got a UFC podcast called 5 Rounds. I've got a wrestling podcast called Badlands, where I would talk about the Mount Rushmores of wrestling. I'm part of a team that does a football podcast now called Radio Techers, and I'm also part of a team that gets together every fortnight just to have a whinge and a moan about the things in wrestling that are kind of grinding our gears. That's called Talk at the Table. So follow me on Twitter at DJ Kirby, get links to all that. And thanks for this opportunity, John, as it's been far too long. We should be doing this way more often.
Agreed. And Griz, I know you've got a few podcasts on the go at the moment. Where can we find yours?
Grizzly Forecasts. I do a podcast of pro wrestling called the Turning Heel Podcast. I also do a second pro wrestling podcast called the Turnbuckle Arms once a month. That is a topical wrestling podcast where we have a couple of drinks and a little chatter, and then obviously my main man Big Chucky T is there. Love you, bro. I also, podcast number 3, have a true crime podcast called A Happening In. So if you're into true crime, then I'm there. I'm getting drunk. I am talking about some people dying a lot. And then Jesus, if you couldn't get enough of the Griz, if you loved Robot Wars as a child, Robot Wars, I also do a Robot Wars podcast called Rise of the Robots, where we talk about Robot Wars, BattleBots, Robotica, and everything else in between. Robots! Fucking robots!
There we go. And Chris, Big Chucky T, you're part of the Brood, the Turnbuckle Arms. I think you're hosting the next show, aren't you, later on this month?
I am very much looking forward to it. Looking for towards the end of this month. We'll let you know on our social media pages when it's going to drop. You can find the Turnbuckle Arms podcast on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. I will tell you the theme of the show. It's going to be 30 years of. Hold on, 1, 2. Of course, the Ayatollah of rock and roll himself. That's always been.
What have I become now that I've betrayed everything I've ever loved to push them all away?
Right, and on that note, we must say goodbye, but thanks Mags, thanks Griz and Chris, and thanks for joining us on this AEW Full Gear review. We'll catch up with you all again soon.